Welcome back ครับ Now we will continue for the first session from stone to silicon databases of inscription from Southeast Asia ครับ and now the presentation of the personal from the Surinthorn Anthropology Center itself นะครับ คุณนวพันธ์ พัทรมูล and คุณดอกรัก พยัคฆ์ศรี นะครับ in the subject of the SAC database the Surinthorn Anthropology Center database of inscription and manuscripts in Thailand ครับ without further ado ครับ I will leave the floor for the two presenters ครับ thank you very much ครับ
Good morning, everyone. At first of all, I want to say thank you to EFEO for this invitation. Now I would like to present my presentation. As you can see on the screen, our topic for today is about inscription in Thailand database. I begin by looking at background. In 1999, Her Royal Highness Princess Mahachakri Sirinthorn presided over the official opening of Princess Mahachakri Sirinthorn Anthropology Center and gave an address that the center should serve as the housing of rubbings of inscriptions found in Thailand, in which there were more than 400 entries at that time, so that the general public could access this inscription for the educational purpose. However, the center was not able to present and store complete details of all inscriptions due to the limitation of exhibition space. In line with Her Royal Highness' inspiring address, the SAC considered that digital technology for storing and presenting data at the time was relatively advanced in addition to documentation data in the form of document and print media. Therefore, digital technology would be another suitable approach for comprehensively recording, storing, and presenting data and information about inscription. And finally, in 2003, the inscription in Thailand database was launched. Oh, okay, ฉันลืม Oh, okay, thank you. And then for the concept of inscription in Thailand database project is to collecting, disseminating, and supporting information and knowledge about inscription in the academic circle. And in terms of an objective is to collect and disseminate information on inscription in Thailand that have been read, translated and published. Information about inscriptions which has been revised from the record form of the Fine Art Department consisting of 17 fields. as follows: inscription name, author name, script, date, language, face and line, material, form, size, registration, file at current location, exhibit. Okay, sorry. Exhibited and published history, brief description, reference, and transliteration in PDF file. About database usage policy. The primary objective of the inscription in Thailand database is to collect data and information on inscription files in Thailand that have been published and disseminated in various print media to store, compile, and disseminate in the form of an online database. Therefore, the general public can access data easily, conveniently, and quickly, and ultimately can use the information to study various issues further with or benefit the educational circle and Thai society. The SSC allows the general public to make use of our data, including the dissemination of our data and content, including text, information, and photographs. However, the dissemination of information must be subject to the following conditions. Users are not allowed to modify or make changes to any content of information from the inscription in Thailand database website. And user must give appropriate credit or cite in the inscription in Thailand database website provided by the Princess Mahajakri Sirinthorn Anthropology Center as the source of information. And users are not allowed to use any information or content from the inscription in Thailand database website for commercial purpose. The inscription in Thailand database is under the Creative Commons Attribution License and has obtained permission from other sources to use and disseminate from some type of data, including photographs of which the SAC is not the copyright owner. In case of the modification, reproduction, or use of this data for other purposes, users must comply with the conditions of the copyright owner. I will present the current situation. And now there are 3,027 entries of data about inscription found in Thailand, and each entry on the database comes from reliable source of information and has been compiled from multiple sources. And several sub-databases are provided to support the study of inscriptions, such as lexical of inscriptions, bibliography, and dataset. Sub-columns are provided to enhance the knowledge of those interested in inscription in the form of articles, blogs, search terms, inscription found in neighboring countries, inscription news and update, inscription script and project activities. And the third system has a variety of channels to choose from according to the user's experience, such as keyword, name of inscription, language, script, and province. And finally, I will go to talk about improvement guidelines. At first, translate the name and read detail of inscriptions, such as the number of pages and lines, material places where it found, and its current location into English, so that foreigners interested can search for information in addition. This translate data can be linked to the database that the EFEO is currently developing. Proper name or specific name will be written according to the Royal Thai General System of Transcription, which is the official system for rendering Thai words in the Latin alphabet, because one Thai can be translated into many English words, making it difficult to determine the keywords. And to add datasets to support research by students who want to use these datasets relevant to their curriculum. This dataset. And add the geographic coordinates of the location where the inscriptions were found and the inscriptions' current locations. These geographic coordinates can be applied to various historical route mapping in the near future, and add higher resolution image of inscription and rubbing of inscription to the database by requesting permission to take photos of the rubbings of inscription from the Department of Eastern Language, Silpakorn University, and take a photo of the inscription from the Kanchanabhisek National Museum in Pathum Thani Province. This picture take photo of the rubbing of inscription from the Department of Eastern Language, Silpakorn University. And then bring me back to finally the end. This is my website. Thank you for your attention.
We are continue to the another database. Okay. Okay. Today is okay. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to say thank you for EFEO to invitation and okay. This okay? Okay. And I want to say a big thank you to Ajahn François. He is my boss and teacher in when I work at EFEO in the last 18 years ago. François and team in Mr. Poon, we travel to digitize palm leaf manuscripts in northern Thailand. And we collect many digital copies of palm leaf manuscript and create a database of EFEO manuscript. And in the field work, I learned and received many experience about digitization. Then I adapt to the model fieldwork into my SAC project, manuscript database. This is my project, manuscript of Western Thailand database. What we do everything at the first and the last. We do the survey. We survey around the western of Thailand and register of palm leaf manuscript or another the manuscripts like Samut Khoi, Papsa, everything, and digitize them, and then we manage them to the digital collection to the database and preserve digital collection into the storage media and public in the websites, database website of SAC, and we use them into the study to the transform in the media, other media, and the last we will to try create a network of group manuscripts and that I want to in the last of the we do in the of this in video I use the digital life cycle management into the work in manuscript database. It's aid to do in this. The first is a conceptual policy, and we are conceptual framework and policies for collaboration among related working group such as management, academics, and technology department or knowledge communication department and etc. And number two, appraise and select. And three, create or receive. Four, describe the manuscript. Five, and conserve and preserve manuscript or digital copy. Six, store. Seven, share. Access, use and reuse, and the last one and number 8 is transform into the other media. First is culturalized policy, and we set the framework for the collecting the manuscript. We scope the working area in the western region of Thailand, in the กาญจนบุรีราชบุรีนครปฐม 8 province เพชรบุรีประจวบคีรีขันธ์สุพรรณบุรีนะครับสมุทรสาครสมุทรสงคราม and we collect all types of manuscript except inscriptions because we have already the inscription data. We collect the palm leaves or size is a short one and the long one. As a Thai traditional book, Samut Khoi, book, Samut Khoi in the southern of Thailand. Northern Thai traditional book, Pap Sa, Thai traditional book, Pap Hua, modern book, bamboo book, is Thai language is หนังสือเจียง แล้วก็ all the textile or ใบจุ่ม and etc. And we collect the digital copy only, not the original manuscript. The original is stay in the resource press, and we choose the digitization with a high resolution digital camera and configure the digital file extension is JPG. I have time 5 minutes. It's okay. And we manage the digital copy in Adobe Lightroom, and we give information in title, caption, right, creator or GPS, and crop and watermark and rename the file. And we use the convention of using CC to use the data of SAC manuscript. Number 2. Number 2, we consider for accessing and selecting, we concern the manuscript integrity, the first one, and the second is the importance of the document. And create or receive, we create from my work. First of all, I to clean on and clean the dust of the Samut Khoi and whip the palm leaf with alcohol, mix the water to clean that. And we use digitized manuscript by high resolution digital camera and use a lighting feature to help the shooting image นะครับ because it's controllable, it's adjustable and equable and shadowless. And we use the background to highlight the manuscript and clearly and easy to adjust photo with computer when we back to office. We will check in the computer, the photo in the computer. And the last in the field, I will check and the manuscript and packing the collection of original manuscript and wrap them with the new cloth and attach the information of manuscript text. This is text and new cloth into the resource or temple when we visit. Number 4, we describe the manuscript. We give an ID, name or title, subject, prosody, type, script, language, size, location, and condition. It is metadata, and we give the each record of manuscript. NPT meaning is Nakhon Pathom. 002 is meaning Wat Don Khanak, and 001 is meaning the first volume of the collection of Wat Don Khanak. Conserve and preserve, we conserve the physical of manuscript by basic cleaning, and we use the alcohol mix with water to whip the dusty palm leaf manuscript. Sometimes if palm leaf manuscript are too dry, we use the olive oil to whip the manuscript and wrap them with new clothes, store them in a well ventilated place free from insects and moisture. And when we preserve the digital copy of manuscript by making multiple copies. We store the data on internal storage such as a computer and back up the data to the external storage as external hard disk, cloud, server. And we have a policy to verify data and move the data to the new storage, improve the storage to be appropriate and always up to date. And 7, share, access, use, and reuse. We create an online database to disseminate manuscript with public access and encourage the user to use the content the content of manuscript to support data sustainability. And we have the Creative Commons CC that's work to in the users policy. Yes, that is a website and picture of manuscript. The last one, and we transform to the new media is infographic or content of manuscript into the books, audio, video, infographic, exhibition, and so on. It is and thank you and and apologize to my poor English. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Kun Nawapan and Kun Thanongsak. I think Dokrak, sorry, Sapson. So we are a little bit late, so maybe we can have one question if you want. ภาษาไทยก็ได้ภาษาอังกฤษก็ได้ Okay, so I will ask a question if no one has a question. So for Kun Dokrak, you mentioned that your project is now concentrated on the western part of Thailand. Yes. Do you have the project to expand to every province or which?
Yes, I will try. I will try to expand the project to in Thailand, about Thailand.
Okay, and so do you have any idea to cooperate with, like for instance, the Chiang Mai University, who has already digitized some manuscript?
Yes. I will to create a network of Chiang Mai University and Ratchapat University, Chiang Mai University, Chulalongkorn University, and so on.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's the EFEO too.
แน่นอนครับ Thank you very much ขอบคุณครับ So the next talk would be online. So our colleague from India, Dominic Goodall, will talk to us about some recent reading of inscription in Thailand in the context of DHARMA project. So I hope he's with us now.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, he is with us. So can you hear me, Dominic?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, and we hear you. So I'll leave you the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope you can now see my screen. let me know if you cannot see my screen. So first
Yes,
of all,
we
thank
can. Now we see your screen now.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed for the invitation. I'm sorry that I cannot be with you in person today, but we have a series of 5 workshops coming up in the next 6 weeks. It would have been so interesting to share with you. I see that many people are doing very similar things, building databases, correcting data, adding images, and so forth. And essentially, this is what this DHARMA project is doing too. At least it's one of the major activities of the DHARMA project. But because in our case, the plan is really to try to build a trans-regional corpus. That's to say, to go beyond the political boundaries, the frontiers of today. Because, of course, as we all know, the whole corpus of inscriptions in Sanskrit is spread over many countries, and it is sometimes very difficult to get to see them all. If one is in one particular country, one knows the corpus where one is. So this is the center of the École in Pondicherry, which is where I work. We've been working on inscriptions for a long time. So this is an epigraphy workshop that took place in 2007. For the Tamil-speaking region alone, let's just say Tamil Nadu, there are estimated to be about 30,000 pre-modern inscriptions. So you can imagine there's a huge corpus, and it's, of course, not fully edited. And we are also trying to produce estampages and photographs and so forth of many inscriptions. So this is in Trichy, also known as Tiruchirappalli, in the south of India, and you can probably see that the lettering is very familiar. It is Pallava period Grantha lettering, though in fact in the central picture what you see are the names of a Pallava king, some of them in Sanskrit and some of them in a Dravidian language, possibly Telugu. So these are from the National Museum of Cambodia in Phnom Penh. We had a visit in October of this team of professional estampage makers, and we made a workshop as part of the DHARMA project. But what I was going to try and show you today, rather than talk about the technicalities of building a corpus, of typing in the data and so forth, I was just going to try and show you one or two examples of recent discoveries and show, if I can, how they have been helped, assisted by the DHARMA project. So one thing that I should say is that I'm having regular readings with groups of scholars, so one weekly reading in which we try and look primarily at inscriptions from Nepal and the Khmer-speaking regions, but particularly inscriptions which are rather hard to read. And this one is, of course, a prime example, very difficult. I've spoken about it in that article mentioned on the bottom right, because I think it's one of these inscriptions of a governor appointed by Ishanavarman I, the Khmer monarch from the beginning of the 7th century. So this has, of course, long been noticed. Georges Sedès published just these words from the inscription. And when I first saw an image of the inscription, I realized how misleading this little mention was, because as you see, he's taken as though it were a single stanza, what is in fact just the first 2 columns of what must once have been a 4-column text. And so we have the first half of one verse followed by the first quarter of the next verse. We're missing all the rest. It's very hard to read this inscription, and I believe there are editions produced in Thailand. There's something which I haven't been able to see in the Silpakon journal, so it's possible that this has already been well published. But in our reading group, we managed to read quite a lot of even the verses which seemed to be partly effaced. And it's interesting because you can see from the first verse, this is a Mangala verse praising the god Vishnu. May Vishnu be victorious, Vishnu Vijayati, and then various other characterizations of Vishnu. And you can see in further down, so we still have the date, the portion that Sedes read in red at the bottom, so Shaka 559. But we can see in verse 7, which is the same as line 7, it's about a military man, Shuraha, Shuraha Samari, that's to say, a hero in battle, who is qualified in the usual ways that servants of Ishanavarman are qualified. That's to say, he is conscious of favors rendered to him, Kritagyaha, and he's wily politically astute, Nayagyaha. And what he did was install an image of Vishnu. So I say this is interesting because until recently, I had rather the impression that almost all the inscriptions of Ishanavarman, when there was a clear sectarian belonging, almost all of them were Shaiva, and I was not aware of Vaishnava inscriptions. But this seems to be a commemoration of the installation of a Vishnu image in the year 559. So I might come back to this a little bit later. Just to indicate where we are, which I must say that I have hardly been to Thailand, only a couple of occasions and not for very long. This will be all much more familiar to you. It's this approximate look. It's there near the border, Khao Noi. There are 3 hills, each with an inscription on it. Yes, one of the other inscriptions I did try to publish. Again, there are previous editions, notably in the Silpakon Journal, but in this same article, I think that I managed to improve the text and clear up some confusion in secondary literature because the author of the inscription, or the person who ordered the inscription, a certain Shiva Datta, had been mistakenly, I believe, represented as the son of Ishanavarman, whereas in fact he belongs, it seems, to a class of governors. He was the governor of several towns, presumably successively, the governor of Bhavapura, Ardhipura, Dhanvipura, Varapura, Jeshtapura being this place, Khao Noi. So this is just to adumbrate my point about the importance of a corpus. It helps very much when we put the inscriptions together and try to read them in parallel, sometimes to see phenomena like this, that there is, in this case, the phenomenon was that we have a whole class from the early 7th century of people who produce inscriptions and who are governors. And I think that there has been a tendency, and I include myself among the people who have followed this tendency, a mistaken tendency, to assume when you see the name of Ishanavarman, for example, in an inscription, to think, this is an inscription of Ishanavarman. Of course, this is a shorthand. What it is, in fact, is an inscription of the reign of Ishanavarman. And I think that we can see again and again, when we become aware of this prejudice, that many inscriptions are said to be the works of this or that king, but it turns out that the kings themselves are much less active in making religious grants and so forth than one might imagine. Very often their role is simply to ratify measures that are put in place for a certain foundation, to confirm, or they're quoted because it happens in their reign and so there must be some praise of them. But the actual actors, the people credited with producing some of these inscriptions, are often servants in the wider sense, that's to say government servants in the reign of these kings. So I recently published with Nicolas Revere some other fragments from inscriptions found in Thailand. And so the one there in the top left, 1A, this is, I think, K1563. This is another, it's very small, we cannot do very much with it, but it turns out that it is another inscription produced in the reign of Ishanavarman. And so of some interest, because it shows that Ishanavarman's sphere of influence was widely extended. We had 1 or 2 instances in what is today Thailand, but there seem now to be more. I return, I don't know how much time I have left, but I cannot not mention this recent discovery, which is so sensational. I know that there is an edition again in the Silberkorn Journal, and there's another edition produced recently in this Festschrift volume. Again, in this article by Nicolas Revier and myself, we revisited the inscription. It's a very fascinating document. And one of the things that we revisited was the date. And I just wanted to go over that with you, because I think that until now, we might have assumed that most of the earliest inscriptions in Thailand belonged to the 7th or 8th century. In the case of this particular inscription, the authors of the article in the Silberkorn Journal proposed that the text dated from the 8th century, and I believe in the Festschrift that dated the inscription to the 7th. Of course, one of the reasons why there's such excitement about this inscription, apart from the fact that it's very, very beautiful, is that it mentions Dvaravati. So the date of the, that's to say, it mentions a town called Dvaravati, and you can see that the lettering is very handsome and full of enormous volutes, these great flourishes and curves. So I think that because of the great flourishes and curves, there had been a tendency indeed to think that it looked a little bit like some of these very decorative inscriptions from the 8th century, like this one here, K1254, from Angkor Borei. But what we did was we looked more closely at the core parts of the letters. So I've tried to illustrate there with partial transcriptions these core parts. You see the letter na in a red ring, and then the letters shena, and then the letter ya. Now, if we compare with other inscriptions, so here's one of Mahendravarman, Chitrasena Mahendravarman, so from around 600, we can get an impression of what the lettering might have looked like around 600, that's to say the very beginning of the 7th century or the end of the 6th. And it's instructive to compare exactly the same letters. So you see the two in blue there, those are both instances of ya. I hope you can see that the initial volute, the initial curve in this Dvaravati inscription is very low near the baseline, whereas it occupies the entire width of the height of the letter in these typical inscriptions from the beginning of the 7th century. Similarly, the retroflex na, which is the two in red, you can see that we still have a central column in the Dvaravati inscription, and this is typical of Brahmi lettering from the earliest times. Whereas in this inscription of Mahendravarman, it has separated out into what becomes this tripartite or three-looped na. Similarly, in yellow, the letter she, that's to say a retroflex sa with an a attached, well, you can see that the marker for the vowel a stays very high. It doesn't descend to the bottom of the line in the Dvaravati inscription, whereas in Mahendravarman's inscription, it descends right to the bottom of the line, and this is typical. So why have I shown all of this? It's because I think that if you just look at one letter or two letters, there's of course a lot of fluctuation. We could be convinced that on the grounds of a single n, for example, that an inscription belongs to the 7th or 8th or 6th or whatever. But when you look cumulatively at lots of details like this, significant details, I think that it helps. One more, and that's this dropped m in a green ring. Do you see that? So this is the word shatam, and here we have this convention widespread throughout the Indian world, Nepal, all parts of India, in the 5th and 6th centuries, of producing a consonant with a stop, a virama, no vowel attached. And this convention of dropping and slightly miniaturizing the letter is something which we do not find in the Khmer pre-Angkorian corpus in the 7th century. You can see that in the 7th century, instead we have the pattern of a ma with a line, a bar over the top, and I think that bar over the top is meant to signal that the letter is, as it were, dropped below the central line of characters. So, to conclude, I think that this inscription really belongs to the 6th century and not to the 7th or the 8th, as has previously been suggested. Unfortunately, that still doesn't tell us whether we have a date or not for Dvaravati in a way, because there are so many ways of interpreting this line. I think several have been discussed now in print. I mean, it's not clear whether the word kyata means famed, famous, or whether it means called, for example. If it means called, then it looks like we may have a city called Sri Yanam Dimiringam, or Sri Yanam, or Dimiringam, and also called Hastinapuri, and also called Dvaravati. But it's possible that it doesn't mean that. It's possible that it means that the city is famous like the Vaishnava Dvaravati. So it's very enigmatic and riddling, and I'm not sure what to think about it. But if one day people decide that it is certain how we're going to interpret this line, which is not complete, by the way, we do not have the complete verse because it's damaged. If it is, then I think that it definitely is earlier evidence of, let's say, 6th century, and not later. Okay, returning to Ishanavarman and Vaishnava installations. This is not in Thailand, but of course it is part of the same corpus, and the Dharma project is trying to see things trans-regionally. So this is an inscription where Sades published it and assumed that Sri Bhupati was a name for Shiva because it might be seen to be similar to Bhutapati. So Bhupati means Lord of Earth, and Bhutapati could mean Lord of fierce creatures, and so would be Shiva. That's one thing that he assumed, which I think is not right. Another is that he assumes, you see, that the king Ishanavarman gave things to this foundation. This is his translation here. Le roi Ishanavarman a donné. That means the king Ishanavarman gave, and then you get a list of things given. Because in the Dharma corpus we're trying to re-examine these things, we are, of course, trying to perfect the data before it goes into the corpus. I looked at it again recently and realized that it would be very unusual to use a word like Bhupati to mean king with Shri prefix to it. Normally Shri prefix is a name, but you also do find Shri as part of a name, typically in names of Vishnu. I think in this case, what we have is Shri Bhupatehi, which means Lord of both Shri and Bhu. So these are conventionally the two wives of Vishnu. He is Lord of Shri Lakshmi and also Lord of the Earth. At least in Tamil inscriptions from quite an early date, this is a well-established idea. And of course, it's one of the ways in which Vishnu is similar to the king, who is also Lord of Shri and Lord of Bhu. I think the other thing that's significant is if you look at the things that we have supplied in red, at the end there are two words that Sades missed. One of them, and both of them are rather crucial. So the sentence at the end says, the clause at the end says, Viryena Indrasamena Parthiva Sudham Shishanavarma Yada. When, at the time when King Sri Ishanavarman was ruling the earth, Parthiva Sudham. So once again, this inscription reveals itself as being not something that reflects Ishanavarman's busy patronage of religious foundations, but rather foundations by servants of his or people in his reign, and he is prominently mentioned for that reason. Okay, just before, have I still got a few minutes, or should I move to the conclusion?
Yes, you have a few minutes more, no problem.
Okay, well, this is just to give I have another reading group which meets twice a week as part of the Dharma project. And in this we are examining more complex, lengthier Angkorian period inscriptions, typically. And so one of the inscriptions that we looked at was Phnom Rung. That's to say, this large inscription from Phnom Rung, which has been broken into two parts. long ago. And when Sedes first saw one part, it was just the top, which he published. And then the bottom part was published in the Silpakon Journal. And then, and I'm not sure what the sequence of events was, but Her Royal Highness Princess Mahachakri Sirindhorn published, or rather produced, an edition with Thai translation in her MA thesis. And I believe that it has not been published as a whole, this inscription. And so we've actually produced an edition, which is coming out soon, which brings everything together, all the propositions and readings of the people who have looked at this. So this verse on the screen here is from the portion which Sedes looked at. And I think Sedes, perfectly understandably, he did not have the whole inscription. He misunderstood a crucial part of it. And what we can see when we read it again is that, in fact, it presents the hero of the inscription. So the inscription is presented in 5 chapters, and they are all in praise of a man called Narendra Aditya. And this Narendra Aditya is a hero in every respect, a hero in battle, a master of various disciplines, and also a yogin. He does astonishing feats of yogic meditation, and he has control over mantras and has magically saved people. So all these things this Narendra Aditya has done, he's praised very extravagantly. It's a 4-faced stela, so there's quite a lot of space to praise him. And this verse here proclaims that he is, I believe, the son of Suryavarman II, which is interesting because all this extravagant praise of him rather suggests that he might have been regarded as being, in some sense, in line to the throne. Of course, we have different succession patterns, but what we know is that Suryavarman II passed away in 1150 or thereabouts, and that's exactly the year that is given in the conclusion of this inscription. So rather than being a little bit more distantly related, a grandson of Suryavarman II, it looks as though this heroic Narendra Aditya Varman, glorified at Phnom Rung, was in fact the son, and possibly in line for succession, or one of the people vying for the throne. This is at the very bottom of the inscription. There is an addition. You can see that the lettering is all very smooth and neat, and then but the 5th visible line here, there's a little circle, a decorative floret, which marks the end of the inscription. And then in rather ugly and difficult to read cursive, there are several verses that have been added. And this verse, which I've translated there, has not been read in the same fashion by all the different people who have looked at it. But what I think it says is this: when Narendra Aditya, the father of his son Hiranya, had gone to the heavens, and when thereupon his mother had gone to the heavens by entering the fire, possibly this means the fire of his funeral pyre, Hiranya, so that's the son of Narendra Aditya, out of devotion, made an image of his mother, Matri Rupam. So the image, earlier there is an image of Shiva, which is made clearly in the image of Narendra Aditya. Now we have an image of the mother, that's to say the wife of Narendra Aditya. And one of the things in respects in which this is interesting culturally is that it seems to be, as far as I'm aware, the only allusion to the act that is often known as sati, that's to say when a wife, after the death of her husband, immolates herself on her husband's funeral pyre, which is something I think was not attested in it's not very commonly attested in epigraphy generally, but I don't think it was attested in the epigraphical corpus of this region. Okay, so conclusion. I think the basic purposes of the DHARMA project are very similar to the digitization projects that have been described earlier. What the DHARMA project enables are, of course, resources for field trips to produce better imagery, better estampages, I showed you some at the beginning, better photos and photogrammetry. So this image here is a rather amazing to me photogrammetric image produced by Adeline Levivier, who's working in the DHARMA project, of one of the inscriptions in the Pallava rock cave that I showed you at the beginning in Trichy. You can see that, so I say that it's such an image. Photogrammetry allows you to produce images which you can steer, as it were, you can move about in them to highlight details. This is a kind of a frozen image drawn from this complex photogrammetric record. And you can see that it's possible to strip away all surface coloration and other things that distract, and you can then really see, I hope you can see, for me it's very, very clear. Even though the lines are faint, they're extremely clear. You can see the image much better in some cases than estampages. Of course, in some cases, estampages are fine. In some cases, you can read things directly from the stone. In some cases, it is a miraculous help to be able to produce photogrammetric images. So that's one of the things that the corpus does. I mentioned implicitly that the project does. I mentioned that another is that it gives me time to arrange meetings with all kinds of colleagues and regularly read so that we can improve the texts of many of these inscriptions. But the purpose is the constitution of a critical mass of epigraphical data from across a wide region, across Asia, which in what will soon be a single searchable corpus. So the advantages of this are evident. When we can establish parallels, we can very often see patterns, and then we can very often correct the slight errors or large errors of interpretation made by our colleagues of half a century or a century ago. And this is, of course, leads to better understanding of the history and civilization of a wide region. Unfortunately, this single searchable corpus is not yet online, but that is the purpose. That is what many of us are working towards, trying to type the data in a way that makes it all mutually compatible and makes it possible, therefore, to see when there are parallels with the corpus in Nepal, the corpus in Thailand, the corpus in Indonesia, the corpus in South India, in Western India, and so forth. Of course, the project is a bit of a dream, and we will not realize a complete coverage of all these thousands and thousands of inscriptions, but the hope is to lead in that direction. And because it is funded by the European Research Council, there is an obligation to produce the data in a way that is accessible to all online. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Dominic. So you hear the applaud. So it was very clear presentation. I just have one question, because you suggest a number of new readings of inscriptions. And on the other hand, you also briefly mentioned the new techniques like the photogrammetry and RTI. I was wondering, you personally, to what extent you use these new technologies? Were they able to help you to have these new readings, or did you make these new readings only from rubbings?
Yes, that's a good question indeed. One wonders sometimes whether all of this trouble is worth it. I have several images, not photogrammetric images, but this other technology, the name of which I forget. So with photogrammetry, you take images from different angles, and these are then combined. In the other technology that I'm trying to think of the name of, you have lots and lots of lights positioned differently, and you take multiple images from exactly the same angle. But the fact that you have all these different lightings gives you then the same capacity to steer. Now, in those cases, the results are very similar, but the production is extremely complicated because you have to control the light sources. And my impression now is that unless you are working with an image that's in an inscription that's in a museum, that technology is just so much trouble that it's hardly ever worth it. In some cases, some of those images produced no results whatsoever. That's to say, I pored over them for many, many hours and won nothing. But in a couple of cases, I had really examined all the stampages, examined all the photographs, examined the object myself over multiple sittings, and then used one of these images and really did, after I mean, I don't know how many hours, but I won a whole line of text. So in other words, the results are variable. In Trichy, I didn't show you because the images are simply too huge, but in Trichy, we do have, in the back wall of that cave is an enormous Tamil inscription which has been read several times with a lot of discrepancies. And there the results are nothing short of miraculous. We can really, really read a great deal more of the text than we could before. We've only had the results for about a month now, but it is transformative. So the answer is results are variable, but yes, in some cases you definitely get a great deal more from photogrammetry.
Thank you very much, Dominique. Is there other questions to Dominique? อาจารย์ไปก็ได้เป็นภาษาไทยก็ได้อาจารย์อุเทน just one question for you, Dominique. One more.
In the early slide you mentioned about Awajapura and you identify with the Kadai Ang or Kadai Ong, right?
Yes.
Yes, it's confused me because its name also happened in the bronze inscription in the province of Prajinburi Sakeo. So please to give me some your evidence for identification or any more explain. Thank you.
The article I quoted whatever evidence I had for this
Thank you,
article,
Ajahn.
but I should say at once that I am absolutely not an orthography or an authority on the geography of this region. I live in South India. I am fascinated by this corpus of inscriptions, but I was there relying on some piece of secondary literature which I don't immediately have to hand. I don't have any personal information, and you may be right. I think that a lot of these identifications of cities are problematic. I only put the ones in where there seemed to be some sort of consensus, the identifications, where there seemed to be some sort of consensus in the early scholarship. But I think that there has been a certain amount written about Ardipura. You may be right. I think the part of the evidence, is it K53? I would have to look. I'm sorry that I cannot give you a proper answer.
Thank you very much.
Except to say that I'm not at all a specialist of geography of this region.
And thanks, Dominique, to be with us, even not physically, but at least on the screen. So it was very kind of you to participate in this event. Thank you very much, and see you soon. So now we'll pass to the next presentation from Julia Estève, that some of you know. So she will talk about the documentation and data storage in Khmer inscriptions, so I suppose in the context of the CIK project and also in the DHARMA project. So thank you very much, Julia.
Yes, okay, thank you. Yes, today I'm here to show you the links between the CIK, so the epigraphy of Cambodia, the project of this documentation and data storage of the Khmer inscriptions, and the links between this CIK and the DHARMA program, and how we try to link all together and to kind of import the CIK into the DHARMA projects. So I am based in Bangkok at the UTK Krungtep, but this work is done mainly with our team in Cambodia. So, of course, as you know, since the reopening of the country, that is Cambodia, a great number of new inscriptions have been found. So it is necessary to check that they are indeed new inscriptions and unpublished inscriptions. And if they are, we need to inventory those inscriptions and fully document them. So this is the objective of the CIK program that you can see at this address. So that's hosted by the EFEO website. So with Dominic Soutif from the EFEO CMREP, we already have presented you the CIK program and the CIK corpus twice already here, with a workshop with Grégory, and before that with Christophe Potier. But maybe some of you were not there, so just very rapidly, all the data we have of the inscriptions are in one table. This table is actually the same as a CEDES volume number 8, with, of course, some additions that we have implemented, such as the material of the inscriptions. So you see you have the K number, you have other numbers, because sometimes an inscription has a K number and a Thai number, or just a personal number by the one who discovered it, where it was discovered, where it is now, the material that supports the inscription, also the bibliography at the end, the last column, if there are some rubrics at the EFEO or in the French library in Paris or in some other place. So all of that is necessary to date, but also to register and to track all the inscriptions, because of course with the war in Cambodia, the civil war, some inscriptions were lost, stolen, misplaced. And so this table is downloadable from the website of the EFEO. You get an Excel format. So here you have the last, so it's in French, sorry, but it says download the Excel inventory, and the last version, because it's an old slide here, is from 2021. So of course this, the purpose of this is to make all the collected epigraphic data available online. The provisional website of this program aims, while waiting for a better one, to disseminate the inventory of the K numbers, and of course to continue the inventory made by George CEDES. On the website, you can also download other documents, such as the inventory sheets that you have here, which we call the basic data needed for the inscription to be inventory. And this is what we use on site, what anybody can use on site when an inscription is discovered. There are also paleographic tables, maps, and thematic sheets, and a bibliography on the website. So this is really, these are tools for anybody who wants to work with inscriptions, who want to learn how to read and to really use these inscriptions. A particular attention is paid to the provenance of the inscriptions, both in terms of geolocation of sites, which will eventually allow precise maps of epigraphic data to be drawn up, such as this one. So here we have prepared all the locations of the inscriptions and all the sites we have worked on last year in terms of archaeological research within the DHARMA project. And in these, so we excavated at these 3 sites last year, and in 2 sites we discovered new inscriptions, in Pattaramoon and Prasat Khmer. So this one and this one. And so the idea is to be able to have a location from the biggest dimension to the smallest dimension. So we have maps, but we also locate the inscription on the site with plans like these. So in Prasat Khmer, the new inscription was discovered at this very precise place and spot, and we have full documentation to go with it and to precisely give us all the data we need. So this inscription was found recently, and with a stellar shelter to go with, and so it's a K1430, and it's a new inscription from Yasovarman I. And so all these data relating to the site are recorded in a database of which here is an extract from a first attempt. And so this is an old database that we had built using a FileMaker app. But all these data now and all these different databases that we had built the last 10 years are currently being exported to computer formats more suitable for online publishing. And all these data are complemented by information about the current location of the inscriptions. So here, the picture you see is precisely the newly discovered Prasaksna inscription being removed from the site to be taken to the archaeological storehouse at Beng Manchain province with the ministry. The people here, the person here is from the ministry, checking out that everything is under control and that the inscription is not damaged. Among the documents we prepare and the databases we prepared, we also have scouted and reviewed each storehouse in Cambodia, but also in the neighboring countries, Vietnam and Thailand when it's possible, in order to precisely inventory what is in these storehouses and to locate the inscriptions. So we have plans like these with really the location of inscriptions and the number of the inscriptions. I cannot, how could I zoom in? Can I zoom in? Or you can see it. So here you have the numbers, and you can see with the green line when one has been moved or displaced, and we also try to keep track of that. And here it's the plan of the Angkor conservation in Siem Reap. Sorry. All these inventory data are supplemented by the collection of good breeding materials. So we take photographs, we make rubbings. Of course, rubbings have the advantage of long-term preservation. In the case of inscriptions that are difficult to decipher because of their medium or state of preservation or conservation, other documents are used either by new technologies, the case of the RTI, which is the technology Dominic was referring to earlier. Here you have the result of the RTI images on the computer, and by moving the green dot here, you will direct the light differently on the stone, and so it will provide different angles to read some letters that are difficult to identify. So this was the RTI. Another method is the photogrammetry, and the documentation is supplemented by 3D models to help understand the layout of the different parts of a text. Finally, the last database prepared by the CIK is a complete electronic corpus to facilitate searches for occurrences and to be able to work in good conditions. So each of these inventories is entered into a spreadsheet for which a better version in FileMaker has been produced. Here in the case of the photographs that we have of inscriptions. Here for the rubbings that we have. And finally, a bigger database links all the data collected. So you have the identification of the inscription, the description of the inscription, you have the reading of the text, and here you have the rubbings available for this text and the photographs of the stone itself, of the same text. So it only remained to share all these databases online, all this information online with a sustainable tool. So a first attempt was made by Arlo Griffiths, who is one of the main directors of the DHARMA project, in the case of the Cham inscription corpus. And you can see it here. So because the corpus of Champa is a small one, they started with this one. And in order to precisely put online this all corpus of inscriptions, including the images, the photographs, the rubbings, the readings. And so this website is already online. You have the address here. And you have a comprehensive corpus of inscriptions of Champa. And so the idea is to integrate the CI key, so the corpus of Khmer inscriptions, into a larger project to benefit from this experience, and as Dominic said, to create a pan-regional, pan-Asia corpora. This is the DHARMA program, okay? And this is how we include ourselves into the DHARMA program. And so by 2026, everything should be online. So as Dominique explained, there is a theme for this DHARMA project, the domestication of Hindu asceticism and the religious making of South and Southeast Asia. And under this umbrella and this theme, all the corpora of all these different areas from Asia are integrated. So we have this the Tamil-speaking South India, the area in South Asia, so India from Deccan to Andhra Pradesh. Then we have also the region of Bengal, Orissa, and Arakan, and we have mainland Southeast Asia and insular Southeast Asia. And so the idea is to combine all these corpora from these areas, geographic areas. The tool that is used is called EP.2. It's an international collaborative effort that provides guidelines and tools for encoding scholarly and also educational editions of ancient documents in Text Encoding Initiative, TEI. So this is how it is done, the guidelines that everybody is following. And using this tool called EP.2, we are transferring all the data from all these areas with HTML encoding in order to publish them easily following an EP.2 protocol already tested on other chronocultural areas. So, So today, some of this data is already ready to be used, and it is an important part since it concerns the text, the interpretation of which is, it should not be forgotten, the main issue that justifies the collection of so much data in order to make them easier to understand, easier to work with. And so already online, on the DHARMA website, you have these different corpora, the Khmer corpus, Achalpuram corpus, the Champion epigraphic corpus, and the Chirkali corpus. And of course, our work in Cambodia is focused on the Khmer corpus here, led by Arlo Griffiths, Dominic Goodall, and Dominique Soutif. And the project is really wonderful. To think that we will be able to put into perspective all these geographical areas, all these corpora, is really a dream come true. And so for us, we select a repertoire of texts, the Khmer corpus in our case, and a number of entries can already be consulted and here it says great work, Chloe, because she's the one who entered the inscriptions into the system. And in the website, you can already access the text of the inscription that is reviewed and corrected by the CIK, and you can, in 2026, you will be able to have all the text, all the images, and to compare, to put them into perspective with with the inscriptions of South Asia, to see if you can find a text that repeat themselves, and it will make our work so much easier. And so at the end of this ongoing program, all the data collected will be cross-referenced with the textual data, which will make it possible to create searches for occurrences in corpora isolated in time, to produce cartographic tools related to these particular occurrences or to the object themselves, etc. All this with all the information related to an inscription, with good reading material to check for anybody and amend. Also, it will be possible to amend, to propose your own translation of the own reading of the editions, or your own translation of interpretations.
Thank you very much, Julia. So Dominic Soutif should have been with us, but I think he's occupied with a Khmer minister.
No, French.
French minister,
yeah.
Okay. So French minister in Cambodia. So he's welcoming him, so he cannot join today. But we have Julia, so we're very lucky. So I have just one question, because I have to distinguish between both project DHARMA and CIK, because as far as I understand, DHARMA is mainly concerned with Indic languages, mainly Sanskrit, and CIK also is also concerned with all Khmer
but the idea is to link them, it's to put them together.
So it's not limited to Sanskrit, so the All Khmer, Middle Khmer could be integrated into the DHARMA project.
The CIK came first.
Oh, yes, I know.
And because we started in 2004. It was to revive and to continue SEDA's inventory, because so many inscriptions were misplaced, or new inscriptions were appearing. And with the DHARMA, we had the opportunity to join this project and to become part of this wonderful inter-regional perspective project. And so the idea is to put everything together to be comprehensive.
So if I understand well, so the inscription that I written in Old Khmer or Middle Khmer could be integrated into DHARMA. So theoretically, the inscriptions that are written in Thai could also be integrated into DHARMA.
This is theoretically. I cannot.
Okay, but I mean, it's not limited to Sanskrit inscription. It was my point. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, okay. Does anyone has a question? More questions? Some epigraphist here? No? No, thank you very much. So it's the lunch break now, the moment that everyone is waiting for. So we have one more moment to share together, because I will just give the gift to Julia, and then we can have lunch.
ขอบคุณมากนะครับคุณจูเลีย thank you again ครับ we prepare the lunch for you all ครับ in the fourth floor going on the left side of the elevator ครับ you can find the lunch room ครับ we have lunch for all of you ครับมีอาหารกลางวันเตรียมให้ทุกท่านอยู่ที่ชั้น4นะครับออกจาก